Hi and welcome back to the channel, and today we're doing something I'm really looking forward to. Alright, so you're probably wondering where Carl is. I've reassigned him, I'm the star of the show now. So let's take a look at what we're working with. So this is the weapon, a 1.6 litre Subaru Impreza packed full of power with wind-up windows and a bunch of other poverty-packed stuff. Even though it's a base model, it's got a nice shell with no rust or accident damage. It's been looked after by a P-plater, not. It's got some questionable modifications, but that doesn't matter to us because we're going to strip it all out and turn it into a forest weapon.
Okay, so I haven't entirely been replaced by Meves, but she is on the right track. This is part one of our series of building a full championship rally car out of a GC shell. And the first place to start is gutting the interior. When we do these sort of strips, we try to keep as much as possible that might be resaleable later or reusable. Being this is an Impreza and we're going to turn it into a WRX, there's a lot that we're not able to use again. And once everything's out, the tedious and time-consuming job of stripping the tar off the floor begins.
If you do a video, I'm not sure if the right RX you have to use for it.
Mate, there's nothing better than some underwear to get tar off the floor of the car, mate. That's the best way of doing it. With that sorted out, it was time to get out the running gear, the 1.6 litre engine and front wheel drive gearbox. They're no good to us, however, believe it or not, lots of people use these for off-road buggy conversions. Along with that, wiring loom, dash and windscreens are all out, and then we could get stuck into doing the tower-to-tower roll cage. Now with roll cages you can go bolt in or weld in. For championship cars we generally go weld in, and well, here it is. Next step is to try and remove as much paint and sealant as we can from the seams for seam welding. Now with a good tower-to-tower cage, you don't need heaps of seam welding, just around some of the critical structural areas in the shell. For those that don't know, seam welding is the process of putting stitch welds around some of the panel joins that have only been spot welded together from the factory. Now spot welding is generally fine for road use, however in rally use they can split. So having the extra welds just helps to hold the seams together and stop them splitting, and also increases the torsional rigidity of the shell. Now we're currently measuring up to get the seat rails into the car. We're going to use the factory front seat cross member. And we've seam welded that in already, and then we're going to get the rear one. We're going to weld a tube in across here. We've got to put some reinforcing plates in first. Once that's all welded in, we can get on with the rest of it. We do have to do a little bit of modification here to the cross member just to level things up a bit, so you can see the markings there already. You don't have to do that. It's just the way that we mount the seats up in the car, which will make that a bit easier to sort it out. Takes a little bit of mucking around to measure it all up and get it all in the right spot. Once that's sorted out, we can just get onto it and weld it. We've got to bend up a couple of reinforcing plates while we're at it, and then we can get going with the last of the welding. As with any work, safety has to come first, and even though the shell's all stripped out and most of the tar has been removed, there's still plenty of sealant and underbody stuff underneath the car and in the seams, and that can easily ignite. It's well worth working in a ventilated area because the fumes from the welding can be pretty nasty, and you've got to be mindful about the fuel tank as well. So what we're saying is, think safely. We always have a few fire extinguishers on hand, plenty of water and somebody else around just to keep an eye on things and make sure that if there is a small flame, we can get it out before it turns into a major disaster. Something that comes up pretty regularly in discussions, and particularly on the internet, is that in the GC series, the Imprezas and the WRXs are different body shells, and that is untrue. Effectively, it doesn't matter whether it's a 1.6 litre Impreza or whether it's a WRX STI. In these versions, they are all the same body shell. The difference only being is that some of the bonnets and some of the front bumpers are different. So therefore, the WRX is a variant of the Impreza. It's really just the same car. In saying that though, underneath the skin, things are very different between the non-turbo versions and the WRX. Basically, engine, transmission, clutch, pedal box, cross members, suspension setup, wheel hubs, and even the fuel tanks are different. So therefore, to convert one of these things into a WRX requires gutting all that stuff out, dropping it all out, pretty much none of it is usable, and then putting in WRX running gear into it. And that is what we're going to do with this car. Righto, enough of that little tangent, back to the build. With all the welding and grinding taken care of, it was then time to turn our attention to getting the shell ready to paint. Our focus is painting the inside, including the cage, and there's quite a lot of cleaning that's required to get the shell down to a stage where you can actually get a coat of paint on it. It's a simple enough job, however it's very time consuming. Okay, so then it's time to get a coat of paint on it. And we're spraying outside here using single pack paint, so please don't get upset about it. It's perfectly fine to spray outside. It's in a well ventilated area. It's away from other people, animals, and anything else that could be affected. Painting the inside of rally cars is a tricky operation. Getting around the roll cage is not much fun, and you sort of have to go round and round the car to make sure that you've covered everything properly. And here's the end result. Our usual aluminium colour in the engine bay, interior of the car and the boot. We think it's come up pretty well. Next step is to hand it over to the professionals at M&M Auto Spray to give it a coat of paint on the outside. And there will be a big reveal of that in the next episode. And guess what? It's not blue. So this build's actually been stretched out over a few months so far. We've had the car for a while and it's been in the corner of the workshop and we've just sort of chipped away at it when we've had time. However, now we're in the off season, we've got time to really get stuck into it, so things are going to accelerate. So our series will progress quite quickly. Hope you've enjoyed watching the first segment of that. We'll get on with some more very, very shortly. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll catch you again soon. Cheers.